Late afternoon sunlight filters through stained glass onto polished mahogany, casting warm patterns across Presley's Hideaway's quiet corner booths. It's a refuge few know belongs to Elvis Presley, his secret haven off Beale Street, where he slips in to be just another patron. Today, he enters through the side door. No brass band fanfare, no flashing cameras, just a man in a simple shirt and jeans, hair dark in the glow. At a nearby table, Tommy Grant prowls, new from Chicago and brimming with swagger. He notices the silent stranger studying the menu with rapt attention. No order placed, no water poured. Annoyance nags at Tommy. Does this guy think he owns the place? But as Tommy draws near, the hush in the dining room deepens. Staff exchange uneasy glances. There's something in the stranger's gaze, an unfathomable calm that hushes even the clink of cutlery. Tommy's next words will breach a line he hasn't yet recognized, and the evening will tilt on a single misstep. The soft glow of low-hanging lamps cast warm pools of light over mahogany tables and glossy parquet floors in Presley's Hideaway, an intimate Memphis restaurant tucked away on 2nd Avenue. Soft blues crackled through discreet speakers, and the faint tinkle of crystal glasses punctuated the low hum of conversation. To the casual eye, it was another night at a high-end eatery. To Elvis, it was sanctuary, a place unmarked by tabloids where he could vanish into anonymity. Through a narrow side entrance he slipped, coat collar turned up against the evening chill. He nodded to the manager, who greeted him with a respectful bow, but did not speak his name. Elvis made his way to a corner table beneath a framed photograph of Sun Studios' first session, the camera's flash forever frozen in black and white. He settled into the booth and opened the menu, reading each description with deliberate calm. Inside, new server Tommy Grant hustled between tables, balanced a tray overhead, and smiled brightly at regulars. At 22, he had arrived from Chicago seeking a fresh start in the South, unaware that the restaurant belonged to the king of rock and roll. Tommy's confidence masked simmering nerves. A single misstep here could cost him the chance to learn from the best in the business. His stride faltered when he noticed the silent customer in the corner booth, eyes tracing the menu's fine print. 10 minutes had passed, and the table remained untouched. No water, no bread plate, not even a nod. Tommy caught himself tapping his pen against his pad, irritation flickering behind his practiced grin. He approached the booth with enforced cheer. "Evening, sir. You've been looking at the menu for quite a while. We're not a library, you know." His tone was clipped but not unkind, an edge of impatience undercutting his polished facade. The man looked up slowly, eyes revealing neither shock nor offense, only quiet fatigue. His voice was smooth and deep, carrying a gentle authority. "I like to take my time. A meal worth remembering takes thought." Tommy bristled, lips tightening. "Of course, just let me know when you're ready. I'll be right outside." He spun on a heel and strode away, shoulders rigid, refusing to glance back. In the dining room, Tommy's abrupt retort drew discreet glances. Some waitstaff paused mid-step. One busboy frowned at the manager, who shook his head. Whispers drifted. Poor manners. Hope that isn't Presley. But Tommy, certain he had dealt with an indifferent diner, dismissed their concern. He delivered a bottle of wine to another table and returned to the service station. A plate of sautéed trout gleamed under the overhead light, an order Tommy confidently carried back to the corner booth, only to find the chair empty and the menu closed. Confusion rippled through him. He scanned the room, but saw no sign of the silent guest. When the manager slipped beside him, brow furrowed, Tommy forced a professional smile. Table 42. Nothing but a closed menu. He just left? The manager's face drained of color as he glimpsed the distant corner. "Table 42? He was here alone?" Tommy nodded. "Single gentleman. Dark coat, hat pulled down. Didn't order anything." The manager exhaled, voice low. "You sent him away?" Tommy's jaw clenched. I thought he was just a regular wanting time." Behind them, the empty booth felt charged, heavy with unspoken significance. The manager placed a hand on Tommy's shoulder. "That man saved music history. You turned your back on Elvis Presley himself." Tommy's chest constricted. Shock and shame mingled as he processed the revelation. The kitchen's clatter seemed distant, the blues muted to a whisper. He swallowed, heart pounding, as the full weight of his mistake settled in. The manager's gaze, equal parts disappointment and pity, seared into him. In that charged moment, Tommy knew nothing here would ever be the same. The simple act of impatience had cost him more than a lost table. It had wounded the very soul of the place he sought to serve. And in the quiet booth at the far corner, the empty chair waited, its occupant unseen yet profoundly present, poised to upend Tommy's world in the most unexpected way. Tommy Grant's hands trembled as he wiped down the mahogany tabletop by the empty booth. The manager's words echoed in his mind. "You turned your back on Elvis Presley himself." It felt like a verdict, resounding louder than any judge's gavel. Around him, the restaurant's atmosphere had shifted. Voices hushed, glances darted his way, and even the blues music seemed to falter, each note trembling. Pressure built in Tommy's chest. He had survived audition after audition, relocation costs, and the tension of proving himself to the staff at Presley's Hideaway. Now, in a single misjudged moment, he feared he had squandered every chance he'd ever had. He wanted to flee into the night. Instead, he gripped the edge of the table and forced himself to stand tall. The manager pulled him aside near the pass, where sizzling pans hissed under the kitchen lights. "I'm going to find him," the manager said softly, voice careful. "You stay here, learn from this, we'll make it right." Without waiting for Tommy's reply, he turned on his heel and slipped through the swinging doors into the back hallway. Tommy remained rooted, the din of orders being shouted, and plates clattering forming a chaotic cocoon. His colleagues avoided his gaze, some in pity, others in thinly veiled contempt. The hostess, normally cheerful, now offered a polite nod and hurried away. A busboy slid past, shoulders hunched, holding the broom as though it might bar him from witnessing Tommy's disgrace. Heart pounding, Tommy retreated into the narrow corridor alongside the kitchen. He closed his eyes a moment, inhaled the aromas of garlic and sizzling oil, and tried to recall the strokes of basic server's etiquette. Treat every guest as if they're your only guest. He had failed spectacularly. Out front, the manager found the maître d', and together they scanned the sidewalk through the plate-glass windows. The street outside Presley's Hideaway bustled with passing cars and evening strollers, but no hooded figure lingered. The manager returned, shoulders slumped. "He's gone," he said. Tommy's chest tightened. "Can I do anything?" he asked, voice nearly inaudible above a clatter from the kitchen. The manager paused, then placed a firm hand on Tommy's shoulder. "Yes, you can learn. Be better." He glanced down at Tommy's name tag, then back at the kitchen doors. "Hang in there tonight. We'll sort this out in the morning." He gave Tommy a curt nod and sluiced back into the bustling dining room. Left alone in the corridor's half-light and half-shadows, Tommy realized with a jolt that he needed redemption. He needed to atone, not just to Elvis, whom he might never see again, but to himself, and to the dignity of the restaurant that bore Presley's name. In the dining room, a hush had settled. The remaining patrons ate in quiet respect. Servers moved with subdued efficiency, wary of disturbing the fragile silence. Tommy collected every unused menu from the tables, wiped each one carefully, and stowed them behind the hostess station, determined to apply himself to even the smallest tasks. Then, between courses, something unexpected happened. An elderly couple approached, offering hushed encouragement. "I used to hear him sing in the 50s, the woman said, placing a tip beside her plate. "I'm sure he forgives you." Her gaze was steady, kind, free of scorn. The man patted Tommy's arm. "We all make mistakes." They returned to their table, leaving Tommy stunned by their grace. Reinvigorated by that small act of mercy, Tommy resolved to finish his shift with dignity. He checked water glasses, delivered bread, and adjusted chair cushions, all without a single complaint. By closing time, the kitchen quieted, and the remaining staff gathered for a brief debrief. The manager addressed them. "Tonight was a lesson for all of us. Mistakes happen. What matters is how we respond. Tomorrow, we'll reach out to Mr. Presley." Exhausted but resolute, Tommy nodded, feeling the weight of the past hours begin to lift. As the last guests departed and the lights dimmed, he stayed behind to stack chairs and sweep the floor. In a corner, he found a small silver tray left behind, a single glass, half empty. He picked it up, polished it with his uniform sleeve, and placed it gently on the shelf where untouched glasses waited. That night, as he lay in bed in his small apartment above the diner, Tommy replayed every moment. The insult, the manager's rush, the empty booth, the couple's kindness. He realized that gracious service wasn't about perfection. It was about showing respect to every person, especially the ones we least recognize. He drifted toward sleep with a quiet promise. He would be the waiter Elvis deserved, the one who never again overlooked humanity, no matter how ordinary the guise. And somewhere, he believed, that promise would carry him toward a second chance. The next evening, Presley's hideaway was swathed in the gentle warmth of amber light and the soft hum of hushed conversations. A dozen tables still held remnants of dinners, but most guests had departed, leaving the restaurant poised between bustle and repose. The staff moved with careful efficiency, resetting linens, polishing silverware, and exchanging knowing glances. Tonight would bring resolution. Tommy Grant, newly resolved to redeem himself, had just finished stacking chairs when the front doors opened with unexpected authority. In stepped Elvis Presley, impeccably dressed in a simple dark suit, no sunglasses, no showmanship, and at his side marched Colonel Tom Parker's lean figure, followed by a softly spoken lawyer in a charcoal gray suit. The trio paused in the foyer, surveying the room with quiet assurance. Every head turned. It was not merely that Elvis had arrived. It was the manner of his entrance. No grand announcement, no fanfare. Just the man who had shaped a generation, moving with purpose through space he owned but seldom occupied. The hush deepened into reverential stillness. Tommy, brushing crumbs from his apron at the back station, froze. The moment crash-landed around him. Elvis, for whom he had unwittingly shown disdain, had returned. Tommy's heart thundered. He swallowed hard and squared his shoulders. The manager, standing discreetly by the host stand, approached. "Tommy," he whispered, voice low so only the young waiter could hear. "Serve him." Tommy gulped and stepped forward, apron fluttering at his side. He bowed slightly as Elvis approached table 23, the very booth from which the silent stranger had disappeared. The colonel and the lawyer lingered a respectful distance away. Elvis slid into the seat, smooth and practiced, yet with a warmth that made air crackle. He placed a gloved hand atop the table. Tommy Grant, he said quietly, voice carrying not reproach but invitation. Please bring me some water. Tommy blinked. The baritone drawl softened the air. The weight of mistake turned into a tremor of opportunity. He managed a shallow nod. Certainly, sir. He hurried to the service station, poured crystal-clear water into a chilled glass, and returned. Tommy set the glass before Elvis, before even unthinkingly turning away. He met Elvis's gaze as he replaced the water bottle on the table. The king's eyes, a clear blue softened by concern, rested on him. Elvis Presley, the singer said, offering his hand across the table. Thank you for the water. His voice carried not arrogance, but an even warmth, an acknowledgement of both mistake and grace. Tommy sank into the seat opposite, the world narrowing to the span between their joined hands. He found himself speaking before he could think. I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was you. His words faltered against the gravity of the moment. Elvis shook his head gently. No harm done. Everyone's learning, Tommy. His gloved fingers brushed Tommy's knuckles, a gesture of genuine connection. I come here to be just another man, another diner. But it doesn't always work that way. The restaurant's background bustle resumed as if on cue. The soft clink of dishes, the distant piano riff, the low murmur of returning staff. But for Tommy and Elvis, time held its breath. The colonel leaned in. Elvis thought you might like this, he said, extending a crisp envelope. Tommy took it with trembling fingers. Inside lay a check, and above it, scripted in neat hand, for your college fund. No strings attached. E.P. Tommy's eyes stung. He swallowed past the lump in his throat. I can't accept. Elvis leveled him with a steady smile. Consider it a continuation of the lesson you learned last night. Kindness begets kindness. You have your whole life ahead. Go build something worth remembering. Elvis rose, leaving the half-full water glass and the check on the table. He nodded to Tommy, then, without further ceremony, turned and walked toward the exit. The colonel followed, the lawyer bringing up the rear. They paused at the threshold and looked back once, and then vanished into the Memphis night as quietly as they had come. Tommy remained seated, the check cool against his palm. Elvis's words echoing in his mind. Gratitude, humility, redemption. All mingled in a charged silence. The manager drifted over and placed a hand on Tommy's shoulder. Well done, he said softly. You earned that. Tommy exhaled, releasing a year's worth of tension. He folded the check and placed it in his apron pocket, then carefully poured the rest of the water into a decanter for the next guest. As he walked back through the dining room, colleagues offered warm smiles instead of wary eyes. Some nodded in genuine respect. Others watched in awe. Long after the doors closed and the staff departed, Tommy lingered by table 23. He picked up the envelope again, studying the elegant signature, E.P., and felt a swell of purpose. His mistake had become his moment of growth, guided by a man who, despite his fame, understood that true dignity lay in compassion and forgiveness. From that night on, Tommy Grant served every guest with newfound care, never forgetting that an ordinary act could ripple outward, changing both lives in its wake. And whenever he felt doubt, he would touch the folded check in his pocket and remember the quiet lesson imparted by the king himself, to treat every person with the respect and kindness they deserve. In the days that followed Elvis Presley's quiet return to Presley's Hideaway, the restaurant settled into a new rhythm. The legend's unannounced visit became a private legend of its own, shared in hushed tones among staff and a select few regulars, never printed in tabloids, never boasted on playbills. Yet its impact endured in ways both subtle and profound. Tommy Grant arrived each morning before dawn, determined to honor Elvis's act of grace. He rehearsed the day's station duties in his mind, linen folds crisp, table settings precise, water glasses aligned just so. No longer did he see guests as inconveniences or demands. He viewed each arrival as an opportunity to extend the dignity he himself had once ignored. On a midweek afternoon, the manager summoned Tommy to the back office. He stepped into the warm lamplight where the manager sat behind a tidy desk. With a kind expression, the manager slid an envelope across its polished surface. "From Mr. Presley," he said softly. Tommy's pulse quickened. He lifted the flap and pulled out a single sheet of paper, folded neatly. His gaze fell on the cursive note inside. "Dear Tommy, I meant what I said. The world needs more people who remember that every table, like every life, deserves respect. Use this gift not just for yourself, but for others who follow you. E." Beneath the note lay a check made out to Memphis Hospitality Scholarship Fund, with a modest sum earmarked for promising culinary and service students. Tears pricked Tommy's eyes, but his cheeks found steadiness. A scholarship fund, so that future servers, cooks, and hoteliers could learn their craft with dignity, became his mission. That evening, he arranged a modest meeting in the staff lounge. Under warm overhead lights, he and the manager explained the fund's purpose. A handful of servers and chefs listened attentively. Tommy passed around application forms and guidelines, each printed with Elvis's signature motto, "Honor in service, honor in life." Word spread swiftly but quietly. Kids saving for school supplies took notice. Cooks aspiring to refine their art-studied scholarship requirements. Tommy received letters of thanks before a single award was granted. Each letter filled with gratitude and dreams nurtured by a stranger's benevolence. Months later, the first scholarship ceremony took place beyond the restaurant walls in a modest community center auditorium. Under a simple banner, Elvis Presley Memorial Scholarship for Hospitality, a trio of wide-eyed recipients stepped to the podium to share their ambitions. A line cook determined to open a non-profit kitchen, a barista dreaming of training under master roasters, a young server aiming to elevate Southern cuisine's reputation worldwide. Tommy stood among the audience, chest swelling with pride. In the front row sat Elvis Presley himself, distinguished now by salt and pepper sideburns and the thoughtful wear of time. He nodded at each speaker, arms crossed in quiet support, his presence lending gravitas to every word. When the last student finished, Elvis rose and addressed the crowd. "I believe in second chances. Whether you're a veteran holding a guitar on a street corner, a young man learning the art of service, or anyone who's ever doubted their worth. This scholarship isn't about charity. It's about recognizing potential and giving people the tools to honor the lives they touch every day." Applause filled the small hall. Tommy's eyes found Elvis's across the sea of faces, and they shared a smile that spoke volumes. "Thank you. I understand. Let's keep this going." In the years that followed, Tommy's life transformed in ways he had never imagined. He rose to manage multiple locations in the Presley's hideaway group, each bearing a small plaque that read, "In honor of those who serve with grace." He mentored young hospitality students, his own story woven into his teaching. The night he failed miserably, and the grace that made him better. He never forgot that day on Bill Street when a stranger in a hooded cloak stepped from the crowd and lent his voice to a wounded veteran. He never ceased to marvel that the same king of rock and roll, the man who had once performed for millions, would choose to remind him of his humanity. And every year, on the anniversary of that scholarship ceremony, Tommy returned to the community center. He spoke to new recipients, recounting Elvis's final words, "Respect every life, and you'll honor your own." Then he would reach into his pocket and pull out the faded note that had started it all. The ink slightly smudged, the edges worn. He held it aloft so that every student could see. Honor in service, honor in life. In its simple, heartfelt message lay the essence of a lesson far greater than any stage performance or record label could convey. That true greatness resides not in applause or wealth, but in the compassion we show when no one's watching, and in the grace we extend to lift others toward their dreams. And in the quiet smiles and hopeful eyes of those young scholars, Tommy Grant saw proof that Elvis's legacy, like a melody carried on the wind, would echo through generations, resonant with the dignity and humanity that first bridged a king and a humble server on a Memphis street corner.